I'm Alina Vance, 34, female. I live in a modest apartment in the city, a place I've made my own sanctuary after long days at a competitive tech firm. For years, my career was my main focus, pouring my energy into becoming the best project manager I could be. My life was structured, predictable, and on a clear upward path. But that path was about to be deliberately blown up by a colleague's bitter jealousy, turning my professional life into a battlefield I never asked to fight on. He thought he was smart enough to ruin me, but he had no idea I was always one step ahead. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. The day it all started was supposed to be one of the best of my career. I remember the weight of the air in Ms. Reed's office, thick with anticipation. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the particles of dust dancing in the air, each one a tiny spectator to my fate. Ms. Evelyn Reed, our director of operations, was a woman who commanded respect without ever raising her voice. She had an aura of calm authority that could quell boardroom arguments with a single, measured look. She gestured for me to sit, her expression unreadable. "Eleanor," she began, folding her hands on the polished mahogany of her desk. "As you know, the senior project manager position has been open for the last month. We've interviewed several internal and external candidates. It was a highly competitive process." My heart was a drum against my ribs. I had worked tirelessly for this, putting in late nights, taking on extra responsibilities, and successfully landing the Atlas account, a landmark deal for our company that had been considered a long shot. I had poured my soul into my work for the past 5 years, climbing the ladder with dedication, and I'd always believed integrity. "The decision was not easy," she continued, a slight pause making my breath catch. "But based on performance metrics, peer reviews, and the outstanding success of the Atlas project, the board and I are in unanimous agreement. The promotion is yours. Congratulations." A wave of relief so profound it almost made me dizzy washed over me. I broke into a smile, a genuine, unburdened smile. "Ms. Reed, thank you, I'm honored. I won't let you down." "I know you won't," she said, her own lips curving into a rare, warm smile. "The official announcement will be in the morning newsletter. Take the rest of the day to let it sink in. Your new responsibilities start Monday." I walked out of her office feeling like I was floating. The muted gray carpet of the hallway felt like a cloud. As I rounded the corner back to my department, I saw him, Liam Carter. He was leaning against the wall, pretending to scroll through his phone, but the tension in his posture was unmistakable. Liam, a project coordinator who had also been gunning for the promotion, was ambitious to a fault. He was charming on the surface, quick with a joke and a compliment, but I'd always sensed a sharp, opportunistic edge beneath the veneer. He was talented, I couldn't deny that, but he often cut corners and had a knack for presenting team efforts as solo victories. He believed he was a genius, and that the world and this company owed him recognition. He looked up as I approached, his face morphing into a mask of polite inquiry. "So," he asked, his voice a little too casual. "I got it," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral, not wanting to gloat. For a split second the mask slipped. I saw it, a flash of raw, ugly bitterness in his eyes. It was a look of such intense resentment that it momentarily startled me. But just as quickly as it appeared, it was gone, replaced by a wide, brilliant smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Ellie, that's fantastic," he exclaimed, stepping forward to give me a brief, stiff hug. "Wow, I knew you would, you totally deserve it. No one worked harder on the Atlas account." He pulled back, his smile unwavering. "Seriously, I'm thrilled for you. We have to celebrate, drinks tonight." "Thanks, Liam, maybe some other time. I think I'm just going to have a quiet night in," I replied, the chill from his initial expressions still lingering on my skin. That look had felt like a declaration of war. Of course, of course. Big day," he said, still smiling that bright, false smile. "Well, I'm heading out. See you on Monday, boss." He gave a little wink, turned, and walked away, his stride just a little too confident, a little too jaunty. As I watched him go, I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. His congratulations had felt like a threat. It was a poisoned smile, a beautiful, deadly flower hiding a venomous intent. My friend Jasmine, who worked in HR, had once warned me about him in hushed tones by the coffee machine. "He's a shark, Ellie," she'd said. "He's smy. Less right before he bites." At the time, I'd brushed it off as office politics. But now, standing there in the quiet hallway, the promotion feeling less like a victory and more like a target painted on my back, I realized I should have listened more closely. The battle had been won, but the war was just beginning. The first week in my new role was a whirlwind. I was immediately tasked with leading the Project Nightingale, a high-stakes, time-sensitive initiative for a major client. It was the kind of challenge I thrived on, requiring meticulous planning, seamless team coordination, and flawless execution. My team was a mix of seasoned veterans and bright junior members, and Liam was assigned to my team as a project coordinator, a decision made by Ms. Reed to ensure continuity on some of his prior tasks that were being absorbed into Nightingale. I had my reservations, but arguing against my new boss's first directive seemed unwise. I resolved to be professional and give him a fair chance to prove he could be a team player. That resolve was tested almost immediately. The sabotage started subtly, like a slow poison. It began with whispers. I'd walk past the break room and conversations would suddenly hush. I'd see Liam in a deep, earnest-looking conversation with a team member, and when I'd approach, he'd clap the person on the shoulder and say loudly, just giving them a few pointers from my experience, "Glad to help the new boss out." It was cleverly framed as helpfulness, but the undertone was clear. He was positioning himself as the real authority, the seasoned expert graciously assisting the newly promoted, and perhaps overwhelmed, manager. Then came the accidents. A crucial meeting with a vendor was missed because the calendar invite, which Liam was responsible for sending, was mysteriously set to the wrong time zone. He was profusely apologetic. "Oh my gosh, Aliner, I am so sorry, I must have clicked the wrong setting. It's this new software update, it's so buggy. I'll reschedule right away." I had to spend the afternoon doing damage control with the furious vendor, and Ms. Reed was not pleased. The blame fell on me, as the project lead. It was my responsibility to double-check. The whispers grew louder. I heard secondhand from Jasmine that Liam was telling people I was in over my head, that the Atlas project was a fluke, and that I was leaning on him heavily to keep Nightingale from derailing. He painted a picture of himself as the unsung hero, holding things together while I struggled with the pressure. The real escalation came a week later. We had a critical deadline for the first phase of Project Nightingale. I had spent the entire previous day and most of the night compiling the final report, a complex document with dozens of integrated data charts, progress logs, and financial projections. It was saved on our shared server, in the project's main folder. I walked into the office the next morning, coffee in hand, ready to give it one final polish before our 10 a.m. presentation to Ms. Reed and the client stakeholders. I logged into my computer, navigated to the folder, and my heart stopped. The file was gone, not moved, not renamed. Gone. Panic, cold and sharp, seized me. I searched the entire server, checked the recycle bin, ran every recovery scan I could think of. Nothing. It was as if it had never existed. My meticulously crafted, 80-page report had vanished into thin air just 3 hours before its due time. I ran to the IT department, my mind racing. They were sympathetic but couldn't work miracles. "It looks like it was permanently deleted from the server, Aliner," the tech specialist said, peering at his monitor. "The action was logged at 7:15 a.m. this morning. The user was logged in from a workstation in your department." My blood ran cold. I was the only one with full admin access to that folder. The only other people with right access were my team members, including Liam. I had gotten to the office at 8:30 a.m. Liam, however, was an early bird. He was already at his desk when I'd frantically run past it on my way to it. I confronted him, trying to keep the accusation out of my voice. Liam, the Nightingale Phase 1 report is gone. Did you see it this morning? Or access it for any reason? He looked up at me with wide, innocent eyes, the picture of concern. The report is gone. Oh no, that's terrible. I haven't touched it. I was just catching up on emails when I got in. Are you sure you saved it in the right place? He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. You've been under a lot of stress, Ellie. It's easy to misplace things when you're juggling so much. His fake sympathy was more infuriating than an open admission of guilt. He was not only sabotaging my work, but also actively trying to gaslight me, planting the seed of doubt that I was incompetent and cracking under pressure. The lie was so smooth, so practiced. There was no way to prove E had done it. It was my word against his. I had no choice but to go to Ms. Reed, my face flushed with a mixture of fury and humiliation. I explained the situation, the missing file, the impending deadline. I didn't accuse Liam directly, I had no proof, but I described the circumstances. Her expression was one of deep disappointment. Eleanor, she said, her voice stern. This is a major issue. Project Nightingale is our top priority. A failure to secure and back up critical documents is a fundamental lapse in project management. The client is expecting this report. You have until the end of the day to reconstruct it. I will handle the client. She didn't yell, she didn't have to. The quiet, cold disappointment in her voice was 1,000 times worse. As I walked back to my desk, the weight of failure pressing down on me, I saw Liam watching me from across the room. He wasn't smiling anymore. He just had a small, satisfied smirk on his face. He had orchestrated this perfectly. He had made me look incompetent and unreliable, all while appearing to be a supportive team player. I spent the next 8 hours in a frantic, caffeine-fueled haze, rebuilding the report from scattered notes and old email attachments. I made the deadline, but the damage was done. My credibility had taken a direct hit. I knew then that this wasn't just about a promotion anymore. Liam was trying to get me fired, and if I didn't do something, he was going to succeed. The aftermath of the deleted report was a cloud of suspicion and stress that hung over me for weeks. I became paranoid, triple-saving every document on multiple drives, documenting every conversation, and watching my back at every turn. The atmosphere on the team grew tense. Liam continued his campaign of subtle psychological warfare, offering help in team meetings in a way that highlighted my perceived weaknesses and correcting me on minor details in front of others. He was building a narrative, brick by brick, that I was a failing manager. My confidence, once my strongest asset, was eroding with each passing day. I felt isolated and defensive. The breaking point, the moment that shifted my fear into cold, hard resolve, came during the most critical phase of Project Nightingale. We were preparing to launch a beta version of the software we were developing for our client. This launch was everything. The client's entire marketing campaign was built around our delivery date. Any significant delay would not only cost us a fortune in contractual penalties, but would also irreparably damage our firm's reputation. The final component was a complex data migration. It was a delicate operation, requiring the transfer of massive datasets from the client's old system to our new platform. I had personally overseen the creation of the migration script, a piece of code that had to be perfect. Liam, with his supposed technical expertise, had been assigned to run the final pre-launch diagnostics on the script. He assured me everything was flawless. Ran all the tests, Ellie, he'd said with a confident thumbs up. It's green across the board, ready for deployment tonight. I should have known better. I should have checked it myself, line by line. But I was stretched thin, managing a dozen other critical launch tasks, and for a foolish moment, I took him at his word. That was the mistake he was counting on. The migration was scheduled for 2 a.m. to minimize system downtime. I was on a conference call with the lead engineer, monitoring the process remotely from my apartment. At 2:15 a.m., the engineer's voice crackled with alarm. Eleanor, we have a problem, a big one. The script is corrupting the data. It's inserting null values into key fields. We have to abort now. My stomach plummeted. Abort the sequence, I yelled into the phone. We managed to halt the process, but not before nearly a third of the client's customer data had been scrambled into unusable garbage. It was a catastrophe. The next morning, I was in Ms. Reed's office before she'd even had her first coffee. The client was, to put it mildly, apoplectic. Our company's top engineers were now working around the clock to restore the data from backups and figure out what went wrong. Ms. Reed's face was grim. Eleanor, I'm going to be blunt. This is the second major incident under your leadership on this project. The client is threatening to pull the contract. This can't just be bad luck. What is going on? I don't know, I said, my voice shaking with a mixture of rage and exhaustion. The script was tested. Liam ran the final diagnostics himself and signed off on it. I just spoke with Liam, she said, her eyes boring into mine. He said you insisted on using an outdated and unstable version of the script against his advice. He claims he warned you yesterday afternoon that it was too risky, but you were worried about the deadline and decided to push forward anyway. He even showed me an email he sent you, times. Tamped at 4:30 p.m. yesterday, outlining his concerns. I stared at her, completely dumbfounded. What? That's an absolute lie. He never said that. He never sent me any email. It's in his sent folder, Eleanor. He forwarded it to me this morning. My mind was reeling. An email, a fabricated email. How? I scrambled to my laptop, my hands trembling as I searched my inbox, my spam, my trash. There was nothing. No email from Liam with any warnings. He had manufactured evidence. He had set a trap and I had walked right into it. I was placed on formal review, one step away from being fired. My access to Project Nightingale was revoked pending the outcome of an internal investigation. I was told to stay at my desk and focus on administrative tasks. It was a public humiliation. I could feel the eyes of my colleagues on me, the whispers now open and filled with pity and scorn. Liam, meanwhile, was lauded as the one who had tried to prevent the disaster. He was temporarily assigned my duties, stepping up to fix the crisis he had engineered. He walked around with a somber, responsible look on his face, occasionally glancing over at me with an expression of faux sympathy that made my blood boil. That evening, I sat at my desk long after everyone else had gone home, the office silent except for the hum of the servers. I felt utterly defeated. He had outmaneuvered me at every turn. He had documentation. I had nothing but my word, which was now worthless. As I was numbly preparing to leave, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Jasmine in HR. Don't give up, it read. There's always a digital trail. Check the server logs for email activity. An IT admin can pull them for you if you have a valid reason. The Nightingale investigation should be reason enough. A tiny spark of hope flickered within me. The server logs, of course, they would show every action. If he had somehow faked an email, the logs might show how. But how could I get access? It wouldn't just give them to me, especially now. And then I remembered something else. An IT security upgrade from a few months ago. To combat phishing, they had installed a new, highly advanced email logging system that not only tracked sending and receiving but also drafts. Every version of a saved draft was captured in the system's backend for recovery purposes. It was a system glitch, in a way, a feature that recorded more than it was supposed to, a potential privacy issue they were still ironing out. But for me, it was a lifeline. If Liam had drafted that email, then edited it, or somehow manipulated the timestamp, this glitch in the system might hold the key. He thought his digital forgery was perfect. But no system is, I just had to find the flaw. This was no longer about saving my job. This was about exposing a liar and taking back my life. The despair I felt began to recede, replaced by a cold, sharp-edged determination. He wanted a war, he was about to get one. The next morning, I walked into the office with a new purpose. The humiliation was still there, a hot coal in my gut, but it was now fuel for a fire of righteous anger. I couldn't go to it and ask for the email logs directly. That would tip my hand and likely get shut down by management. I needed another way. I needed irrefutable proof, something visual, something no one could deny. My mind went back to an incident a year ago. A series of minor thefts had occurred in our department: laptops, personal items. As a deterrent, the company had allowed employees to request the installation of small, discrete security cameras at their workstations, aimed only at their personal desk space. The footage was for personal use, a way to protect one's property. Most people forgot about them after a few weeks, but I, being meticulous about security, had one installed. It was a tiny, wide-angle lens, no bigger than a pen tip, nestled in the corner of my monitor stand. It recorded on a loop to a small, hidden SSD drive I had taped to the back of my CPU tower. Its view covered my desk, my chair, and a clear shot of anyone who approached my workstation. I had completely forgotten about it until now. It was my silent witness. My heart hammered in my chest. If Liam had done something at my desk, or even if he hadn't, and the camera could simply prove my own innocence, the footage was my golden ticket. The problem was, I couldn't risk retrieving the SSD drive from the office. Liam was watching me like a hawk, and accessing the back of my computer would look suspicious. I needed to get the footage, but I also needed more. I needed to catch him in the act of further sabotage. I needed to see his whole process. This is where my plan began to take shape, moving from defense to offense. I decided to set a trap. I would give him a new target, something so tempting he wouldn't be able to resist, and I would make sure my silent witness was ready. First, I needed to upgrade my surveillance. The old camera was good, but I needed a UDO, and I needed a better view of his own workspace. That evening, I bought a new set of tools: a state-of-the-art spy camera disguised as a USB phone charger, complete with high-definition video, motion activation, and crystal-clear audio recording. I also purchased a small, innocuous-looking digital picture frame. The following day, I came in early before anyone else arrived. I calmly walked over to Liam's desk. It felt like a scene from a spy movie. My hands were shaking slightly as I unplugged his existing phone charger from the power strip under his desk and replaced it with my new camera-enabled one. I aimed it upwards, giving it a perfect view of his monitor, his keyboard, and his face. It was a risky move, but his arrogance was my ally. He would never suspect it. Next, I went to my own desk. I swapped my old family photo for the new digital frame. I positioned it carefully on the corner of my desk, angled towards my workstation, but also capturing a wide view of the aisle behind me, where anyone approaching my desk would be seen. This one also had a hidden camera. I now had two silent witnesses, covering both his space and mine. The bait had to be perfect. I knew the investigation into the data corruption was ongoing. The engineers were still trying to pinpoint the exact line of malicious code in the migration script. I decided to find the solution. I spent the day working on a dummy document on my local drive, not the server. I named it Nightingale Root Cause Analysis docx. Inside, I wrote a fake analysis, full of technical jargon, that proved the error was caused by a server-side incompatibility and had nothing to do with the script itself, a theory that would completely exonerate me. I made sure to hide this document in a nested series of folders, making it seem like a private file I was preparing for my defense. The final piece of the trap was to let him know it existed. Around 3 p.m., I called Jasmine, my friend in HR, knowing full well that the office walls had ears. I spoke in a low but audible voice, filled with false excitement. "Jasmine, I think I found it," I whispered. "I've been running diagnostics on my local machine. The problem wasn't the script. It was a server-side packet loss during the transfer. I have the logs to prove it. I've documented everything. This proves my innocence. I'm going to present it to Ms. Reed tomorrow morning." I made sure Liam was in his seat and not wearing his headphones. From the corner of my eye, I saw his typing pause. His head tilted slightly. He was listening. I hung up the phone and for the next hour pretended to be engrossed in my work, occasionally glancing at the analysis document. I packed up my things at 5:30 p.m., leaving my laptop on my desk, powered on but locked. The digital picture frame and the USB charger were active and recording. As I walked out of the office, I felt a surge of adrenaline. The trap was set. The silent witnesses were waiting. Now, all I could do was go home, watch the live feed from the cameras on my phone, and wait for the shark to take the bait. That night, my apartment felt like a mission control center. I had the live feeds from both cameras pulled up on my tablet, my heart pounding with every flicker of movement from the office's motion-activated lights. For hours, there was nothing but the silent, empty office, stark and sterile under the fluorescent glow. I paced my living room, second-guessing everything. What if he didn't take the bait? What if he found the cameras? What if this was all for nothing? Then, at 9:47 p.m., a shadow moved at the edge of the frame from the camera at my desk. The main office lights flickered on. It was him, Liam. He walked in, not with his usual swagger, but with the cautious, furtive movements of a thief. He wasn't carrying a briefcase or a coat, meaning he had likely been lurking somewhere nearby, waiting for the building to be empty. I held my breath, my eyes glued to the screen. He went to his own desk first, a smart move to establish a pretext if security were to see him. He sat down and typed for a few minutes. The camera disguised as his USB charger gave me a crystal-clear view of his face, etched with a mixture of arrogance and anxiety. Then he got up and strolled casually, almost nonchalantly, towards my workstation. This was it. He stood over my desk for a long moment, glancing around the empty office. The camera in the digital picture frame captured his every move. He pulled a pair of latex gloves from his pocket and slipped them on. The sheer premeditation of it sent a shiver down my spine. He then sat down in my chair in front of my locked laptop. From another pocket, he pulled out a small USB device. I recognized it instantly. A keylogger, a nasty piece of hardware that can capture every keystroke. He had likely planted it days or even weeks ago. He plugged it into the back of my computer, then pulled out another small drive. He typed my password, which the keylogger had obviously captured, and my desktop sprang to life on the screen. I felt a wave of nausea. This was a violation on a level I hadn't even imagined. He wasn't just a saboteur, he was a meticulous criminal. He immediately started searching my files. It didn't take him long to find the Nightingale root cause analysis, docx document. The camera on his desk showed his face as he read it, a smug, triumphant smile spreading across his lips. He thought he had found my secret weapon, the one thing that could clear my name. And now, he was going to destroy it. He dragged the file to the recycle bin and then permanently deleted it. But he didn't stop there. He was weaving his own net, trying to frame me further. He opened a web browser and started searching for terms like how to fake server logs, buy corporate data, and job offers from competitor firms. He was planting a false trail on my machine to make it look like I was not only incompetent, but also a corporate spy looking to jump ship. Then he moved to the final, most damning act. He opened a blank document and started to type. It was a resignation letter, my resignation letter. He wrote it in a contrite, apologetic tone, having me confess to negligence, admit I couldn't handle the pressure, and resign effective immediately to avoid further embarrassment for the company. He saved it on my desktop with the file name My Resignation, docx, ready to be discovered in the morning. He then went back to his own desk. The USB charger camera was the star of the show now. He sat down and opened his own email. He started composing a message to Ms. Reed. I could read every word as he typed. Dear Evelyn, it began. I am writing with a heavy heart. I stayed late tonight to try and get ahead of the Nightingale recovery, and I noticed Alina's computer was still on. I was concerned and took a closer look, only to find the attached resignation letter on her desktop. It seems the pressure got to her. I also noticed some very disturbing items in her browser history. I am deeply concerned. I think we need to talk first thing in the morning before this gets out. He attached the fake resignation letter he had just written. He was creating the perfect narrative, the loyal employee, working late, accidentally stumbling upon the confession of his disgraced and crumbling boss. He sat back, read it over, and with a final, satisfied smirk, he hit save to drafts. He didn't send it. He was smart. He would discover it and send it in the morning, making it look fresh and spontaneous. He then meticulously cleared his own browser history, packed up his keylogger, and slipped out of the office, plunging it back into darkness. I sat there in my silent apartment, staring at the blank screens. I wasn't nauseous anymore. I was electrified. I had it. I had everything. His entry, the gloves, the keylogger, him accessing my computer, deleting my proof, planting fake browser history, writing the fake resignation letter, and the cherry on top, drafting the email to Ms. Reed to frame me. It was all there, recorded in high definition, with crystal clear audio of his muttering curses under his breath as he typed. The net he thought he was weaving for me had closed around him instead, and I was the one holding the strings. All I had to do was choose the time and place to pull it tight. A simple meeting with HR and Ms. Reed wouldn't be enough. He had publicly tried to humiliate me. His downfall had to be just as public. It had to be absolute. It had to be a spectacle. The next 2 days were the hardest of my life. I had to walk into that office and pretend to be a broken woman. I had to act defeated, avoiding eye contact, sitting meekly at my desk, while Liam paraded around as the company's new golden boy. He was leading team meetings, my team meetings, with an air of confident authority, occasionally shooting me a look of pity that was so condescending it took every ounce of my self-control not to react. He hadn't sent the email with my resignation yet. He was biding his time, letting me suffer, waiting for the perfect moment to deliver the final blow. He wanted to make sure the investigation was leaning fully in his favor before he played his trump card. My own plan required precise timing. On Thursday morning, I saw the email go out from Ms. Reed's assistant. Mandatory all-staff meeting, Project Nightingale update. Friday at 4 p.m. in the main conference hall. This was it. This was my stage. The entire company, including the senior leadership, would be there. I spent Thursday night editing. I took the hours of footage from my 2 silent witnesses and condensed them into a powerful, undeniable 10-minute video. I started it with a title card, A Study in Sabotage. I used simple, clear captions to narrate the events. 9:47 p.m. Unauthorized entry. 9:51 p.m. Use of keylogger to access a colleague's private computer. 9:58 p.m. Deliberate deletion O. F project files. 10:05 p.m. Planting of false evidence. 10:12 p.m. Forging a resignation letter. 10:20 p.m. Drafting an email to frame a colleague. I ended the video with a crystal-clear, slow-motion shot of Liam's smug face as he saved the draft, the text of the email damningly legible on the screen. I exported the file, named it Final Presentation, MP4, and saved it onto a nondescript USB drive. Friday arrived. I felt strangely calm, the kind of calm that comes when you know you hold all the cards. I dressed professionally in a sharp blazer and slacks. At 3:55 p.m., I walked into the main conference hall. It was packed. Over 100 employees were there. Ms. Reed stood at the podium at the front, with Liam sitting in the front row, looking for all the world like a trusted advisor. He caught my eye as I took a seat near the back, and gave me a small, sad shake of his head, a final, silent act of his twisted play. Ms. Reed began the meeting. Thank you all for coming. As you know, we experienced a significant setback on Project Nightingale this week. An internal investigation has been underway to determine the cause and to ensure it never happens again. She looked grim. We have reached some preliminary conclusions. I could feel Liam preening in the front row. This was his moment. He was likely expecting Ms. Reed to publicly censure me before announcing his heroic role in the recovery. This was my cue. I stood up. Ms. Reed, forgive me for interrupting, I said, my voice clear and steady, carrying across the silent room. Every head turned towards me. Before you continue, I believe I have some crucial information for your investigation. A final presentation that will clarify everything. Ms. Reed looked taken aback, annoyed. Eleanor, this is not the time or the place. Liam stood up, feigning concern. Eleanor, please don't do this. Don't make it worse for yourself. Oh, I'm not making it worse for myself, Liam, I said, looking directly at him. His smile faltered for the first time. I held up the USB drive. I have a short video I need everyone to see. It's directly relevant to the setback on the project. I believe the company has a right to know who is truly responsible. A murmur went through the crowd. Ms. Reed hesitated, her eyes flicking from me to Liam, a flicker of uncertainty on her face. Before she could refuse, Jasmine, my ally from HR, stood up from her seat near the front. "Evelyn," she said, her voice firm, "given the seriousness of the situation, I think we should see what she has." That was all the support I needed. Ms. Reed gave a curt nod. "Fine, let's see it." I walked to the front of the room, my heart beating a steady, determined rhythm. I felt 100 pairs of eyes on me. I avoided looking at Liam, whose face had gone pale. I plugged the USB drive into the laptop connected to the massive projector screen. I clicked open the file named Final Presentation, MP4. And I hit play. The room was plunged into absolute silence, broken only by the faint hum of the projector. For 10 minutes, the entire company watched Liam's crimes unfold on a 12-foot screen. They saw him sneak into the office. They saw the gloves. They saw him hack into my computer. They gasped when he planted the fake search history. A wave of shock rippled through the room when he typed my resignation letter. And finally, they saw the close-up of his face, twisted in a self-satisfied smirk, as he drafted the email to Ms. Reed, every treacherous word visible for all to see. When the video ended with that final, damning image frozen on the screen, the silence that followed was heavy and suffocating. No one moved. No one spoke. It was as if the air had been sucked out of the room. I turned to face Liam. He was still standing, frozen, his face a mask of chalky white horror. His mouth was slightly open, his eyes wide with disbelief and pure terror. He looked like a statue of a man who had just watched his entire world crumble to dust. All eyes went from the screen to him. The whispers started then, low and angry. "I can't believe it. That's sociopathic. He tried to ruin her." Ms. Reed was staring at Liam, her face a thunderous mask of cold fury. She didn't need to say a word. Her expression was one of utter contempt. She turned her gaze to two security guards who were always present at large company meetings. She didn't raise her voice. She simply pointed a single finger at Liam. "Get him out of my building." The guards moved in, their faces impassive. They each took one of Liam's arms. He didn't resist. He was completely broken. As they escorted him out of the conference hall, past the shocked and disgusted faces of his colleagues, his eyes met mine one last time. There was no hatred in them, no anger, just the hollow, empty look of total and absolute defeat. The room erupted. The moment the conference room doors swung shut behind Liam and the security guards, it was as if a spell had been broken. The stunned silence erupted into a cacophony of voices. People were on their feet, talking in hushed, angry tones, staring at me with a mixture of awe and sympathy. My team members rushed over, apologizing for ever doubting me, their faces a mixture of shame and relief. Ms. Reed strode to the front of the room, her expression still hard as granite. She held up a hand, and silence fell once more. "As of this moment," she announced, her voice ringing with cold authority, "Liam Carter is no longer an employee of this company. His actions were not only a violation of our code of conduct but were criminal in nature. We will be pursuing all available legal channels." She then turned her gaze to me, and for the first time her hard exterior softened. In front of everyone, she said, "Eleanor, I owe you a profound apology. I allowed myself to be manipulated and I misjudged the situation completely. Your integrity is beyond question, and your resilience is remarkable. Please, accept my deepest regrets for what you have endured." "Thank you, Ms. Reed," I said, my voice steady despite the emotional tidal wave crashing within me. "I appreciate that." "Project Nightingale is yours again, effective immediately," she declared. "Take the weekend. On Monday, we will regroup and you will have every resource you need to get this project back on track and across the finish line. I have full faith in you." The meeting was adjourned, but no one left right away. I was surrounded by a sea of colleagues offering support, handshakes, and respect. It was overwhelming. Jasmine reached me through the crowd and gave me a fierce hug. "I knew you had it in you," she whispered. "I'm so proud of you." The aftermath was swift and decisive. Liam was fired on the spot for gross misconduct. He was facing a lawsuit from the company for damages related to the Project Nightingale sabotage, and potential criminal charges for his use of a keylogger and unauthorized access to my computer. He had tried to climb the ladder by kicking me off it. Instead, he had fallen into a chasm of his own making. He lost his career, his reputation, and his freedom, all because of his toxic jealousy. The following weeks were about rebuilding, not just the project, but the trust within the team and my own sense of security. The cloud of suspicion was gone, replaced by an atmosphere of renewed purpose. My team, now fully aware of what had happened, rallied around me with a fierce loyalty I had never experienced before. We worked tirelessly, fueled by a shared goal. We not only recovered from the data corruption incident, but we also identified and fixed several underlying issues Liam had papered over in his previous work. We streamlined the process, improved the software, and ended up delivering Project Nightingale 2 weeks ahead of the revised schedule. The client, who was fully briefed by Ms. Reed on the situation, was incredibly impressed. Our moment of near disaster had been turned into a testament to our team's resilience and my leadership. It solidified my position in the company in a way no simple promotion ever could have. I wasn't just the senior project manager anymore. I was the one who had weathered the storm and brought the ship safely to shore. On a personal level, the experience changed me. I had always believed that hard work and honesty were enough to succeed. I learned they are essential, but they don't protect you from the darkness in others. I learned to be more cautious, to trust my instincts, and to understand that sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. I had unearthed a strength I never knew I possessed. Months later, things settled into a new normal. Liam was a ghost, a cautionary tale whispered in the hallways. My career was thriving, and more importantly, I had earned the unwavering respect of my colleagues and superiors. I walked through the office not with paranoia, but with a quiet confidence. I had faced the worst kind of professional betrayal, and had not only survived, but had emerged stronger, wiser, and more in command of my own destiny than ever before. I had cleared the board, removing the one toxic piece that threatened to upend the entire game. And now, I was ready to play on my own terms.